She sneered. Grow a pair and stop being so insecure. When I said I was uncomfortable with her trip with her ex, I replied, okay. She came back to find I'd grown a pair big enough to pack all her things and leave them in the driveway of the house I had just changed the locks on. The conversation that torched the last 5 years of my life took place in the kitchen on a Monday night. My girlfriend Florence was buzzing with excitement, talking a mile a minute about the amazing girls' trip she had just booked. It was a 4-day weekend at a remote high-end cabin rental a few hours away. She was talking about hot tubs, hiking, and drinking wine by the fire. It sounded great. I was happy for her. My happiness lasted until she casually mentioned the guest list. It was her best friend Jessica, and Jessica's new boyfriend. And, as a last-minute addition, her ex-boyfriend Liam. He was apparently going through a tough time, and Jessica thought it would be good for him to get out of the city. A cold feeling washed over me. Liam wasn't just some guy she used to date. He was the guy she had been with for years before me. The one her parents still brought up at holidays. The one she swore was in the past, but whose social media she still checked religiously. I tried to be calm and reasonable. Florence, I said, leaning against the counter. I have to be honest, I'm not comfortable with that. A remote cabin for 4 days with your ex, it just doesn't feel right to me. She stopped what she was doing and gave me a look of pure undiluted scorn. It was a look I had seen before, but never aimed so directly at me. It was a look that said I was small, foolish, and beneath her. She let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a sound designed to belittle. Oh, for God's sake, Mark, she sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. Don't be so dramatic. It's not a big deal. Grow a pair and stop being so insecure. That was it. Those were the words that changed everything. Grow a pair. It wasn't just a dismissal of my feelings, it was an attack on my character. It was her telling me that my valid concerns were a sign of weakness, that my feelings didn't matter, and that I should just shut up and accept whatever she decided to do. In that moment, something inside me broke. It wasn't my heart. It was the delusion I had been living under. The delusion that we were partners, that we had mutual respect. I saw with perfect, painful clarity that she didn't respect me at all. To her, I was just a comfortable convenience. The nice guy with the nice house, my house, that I owned long before I met her, who paid the bills and provided a stable, boring life while she kept her options open. The anger I should have felt didn't come. Instead, a strange and total calm descended over me. It was the kind of calm you feel in the eye of a hurricane. The world was chaos, but my path forward was suddenly crystal clear. I looked her straight in the eye, my face a complete blank. Okay, I said. My voice was quiet, almost a whisper. She smiled, a triumphant, smug little smirk. She thought she had won. She thought she had successfully beaten me into submission. She turned back to her laptop to look at pictures of the cabin, already moving on. She had no idea that my okay wasn't an agreement. It was an acceptance of her challenge. She wanted me to grow a pair. Fine. I would. The next morning I woke up before she did. I went into my home office and closed the door. My first call was to a highly recommended local lawyer who specialized in property and tenancy disputes. I explained the situation. Long-term girlfriend living in my house, not on the deed, no lease agreement. I told him I wanted the relationship and her residency to end immediately. He explained the legal gray area of tenant-at-will status, but confirmed that given the circumstances, a swift and decisive removal of her and her property, while aggressive, was a defensible position, especially if I documented everything meticulously. My second call was to a 24/7 locksmith. I scheduled an appointment for the coming Sunday afternoon, the day she was due to return from her trip. I requested a full re-keying of every exterior lock on the property. My third action was online. I ordered a multi-camera, high-definition security system with motion detection and cloud storage. I paid for overnight shipping. Florence left for her trip on Thursday morning, kissing me goodbye as if nothing had happened. The moment her car was out of the driveway, my operation began. I was about to grow a pair so big they would cast a shadow over her entire life. Update 1. The 72 hours that Florence was gone were the most productive of my life. The security system arrived Friday morning. I spent the day installing the cameras myself, ensuring every angle of the front of the house, the porch, and the entire length of the driveway was covered. I tested the system, making sure the live feed to my phone was crystal clear. This was the most important part of my plan. I needed a silent, impartial witness. Then came the packing. I didn't use boxes. Boxes imply care. Boxes imply that the contents have value and should be preserved. I went to a home improvement store and bought the largest, thickest, blackest contractor trash bags I could find. I bought 10 rolls of them. I started in the master bedroom. I took her clothes from the closet, the expensive dresses, the designer jeans, the stuff she was so proud of, and I stuffed them into the bags. I didn't fold them. I cleared out her drawers, her shoes, her accessories. Everything went into the bags. Then I moved to the bathroom. Every bottle of shampoo, every half-used tube of expensive face cream, every makeup brush, every single thing was swept into the trash bags. I didn't bother to close the lids on the bottles. If some of it leaked, so be it. I spent the entire weekend going through the house like a storm. Room by room, I purged every trace of her existence. The books she had on the nightstand, the throw pillows she insisted on buying for the couch, the little trinkets she had scattered around. Anything that was hers went into a bag. I was methodical, efficient, and felt absolutely nothing but a cold sense of purpose. By Sunday morning, there were over 50 heavy black trash bags piled in my garage. The house was mine again. It was clean, it was quiet. On Sunday afternoon, as scheduled, the locksmith arrived. He worked quickly, replacing the core of every lock. The front door, the back door, the garage, the side gate. When he was done, he handed me a new set of keys. The old ones, including the one on Florence's keychain, were now just useless pieces of metal. At around 4 p.m., I began the final phase. I started moving the trash bags from the garage to the driveway. I didn't just dump them. I arranged them. I made a massive, neat pile at the very end of the driveway, right next to the street. It was a monument to her betrayal, a huge black pyramid of her entire life. Then, I went inside. I locked the new deadbolts, drew the blinds, and sat down on the couch with my phone in my hand, watching the live feed from the security cameras. I was ready. At 5:17 p.m., a familiar car pulled up to the house. It was Liam's sporty two-door coupe. The cameras captured everything in perfect high definition. Florence was in the passenger seat, laughing at something he said. She looked happy, relaxed, tanned. She got out of the car, still smiling, and then she saw it. The camera zoomed in on her face as her smile froze, then melted away into utter disbelief. She stood there for a full 10 seconds, just staring at the mountain of black bags. Liam got out of the car, a confused look on his face. The audio from the camera picked up their conversation. "What the hell is that?" Liam asked. Florence didn't answer. She walked slowly, hesitantly towards the pile, as if approaching a strange animal. She reached out and touched one of the bags. Then she turned and sprinted towards the front door. The camera on the porch captured the next part beautifully. She fumbled for her key, jammed it into the lock, and tried to turn it. Nothing. She tried again, rattling it frantically. She started banging on the door, her initial confusion turning to pure rage. Mark, open this door right now. What did you do?" she screamed. I sat on my couch watching her on my phone and didn't move a muscle. I took a sip of my beer. She pulled out her phone and called me. I watched it ring, then hit the ignore button. She called again, ignored. She started leaving frantic, screaming voicemails. Meanwhile, Liam was getting impatient. "Florence, what is going on? Is this your stuff?" he yelled from the driveway. "He locked me out," she shrieked back at him. "He threw all my things in the driveway." Liam walked over to the pile of bags and kicked one. "This is insane. I'm not dealing with this," he said. He started walking back to his car. That's when the real panic set in for Florence. "Wait, Liam, don't you leave me here. Help me," she cried. He stopped, sighed dramatically, and threw his hands up in the air. "Help you do what? Shove 50 bags of garbage into my two-seater? No thanks. You need to sort this out." The security cameras then recorded the most satisfying scene I have ever witnessed. Florence, realizing Liam was about to abandon her, started frantically trying to open the bags, looking for her purse and wallet. She tore one open, her clothes spilling onto the asphalt. She ripped open another. Shampoo and lotion had leaked all over a pile of her sweaters. She let out a frustrated scream. Liam just stood there, shaking his head, a look of complete annoyance on his face. This was not the fun, carefree weekend he had signed up for. He was seeing the reality of Florence's drama, and he wanted no part of it. After about 10 minutes of her chaotic scrambling, he got back in his car. "I'm leaving, Florence," he said through the open window. "Call me when you figure your life out." and he drove away, leaving her alone in the driveway, surrounded by a mountain of her own life, packed up like trash. She stood there, defeated, and finally started to cry. It was the best thing I had ever seen on television. Update 2. The aftermath of what I now call Driveway Day was even more chaotic than I had anticipated, and infinitely more satisfying. After Liam abandoned her, Florence spent another 20 minutes pacing the driveway, alternating between crying and leaving me furious, threatening voicemails. Eventually, she must have called her parents, because about an hour later, a minivan pulled up and her father got out. He looked tired, angry, and utterly bewildered. The security cameras recorded their entire argument. He was furious at her for the situation, and she was screaming that I was a psychopath. Together, they began the humiliating task of loading the 50-plus trash bags into the back of his minivan. It was a tight fit. The sight of her father, a man who had always been so proud, begrudgingly hauling bags of his daughter's soiled belongings, was a powerful image. The next day, as expected, the police showed up at my door. 2 officers, looking professional but weary. They had clearly been fed a wild story. I invited them in. "Sir," the older officer began, "we received a call from a Miss Florence Benson. She's claiming you illegally evicted her and have stolen or damaged her property." I nodded calmly. "I expected this call," I said. I led them to my office and pulled up the security footage on my large monitor. "First, this is my house. Here is the deed, solely in my name." I handed them the document. "Second, Miss Benson was my girlfriend, living here as a guest. Our relationship ended due to her actions. I asked her to leave. When she returned, all of her belongings were packed and waiting for her in the driveway. She took possession of every single item, and I have it all on video." I played them the footage. I started with the clip of Florence and Liam pulling up, laughing together. Then I showed them her discovering the bags, trying the lock, and her father arriving to pick up every last bag. I showed them the final shot of the empty driveway after they left. The officers watched the footage in silence. The younger one was trying very hard not to smile. "As you can see," I said, "nothing was stolen. Nothing was withheld. I simply packed her things for her to expedite her departure." The older officer sighed and handed me back my deed. "Okay, sir, it's pretty clear this is a civil dispute, not a criminal matter. We'll be advising her of that. Thanks for your time." They left. That was the end of the legal threat. She had no case, and she knew it. Next came the smear campaign. Florence posted a long, tearful story on social media, complete with pictures of the trash bags in the driveway. She painted me as a monster, a rage-filled lunatic who had thrown her out on the street for no reason. She claimed I had destroyed her priceless belongings and left her with nothing. My response was surgical. I didn't engage with her directly. Instead, I sent a single, private group text to a handful of our closest mutual friends, the people whose opinions actually mattered. The text said, "Hey guys, I know you're probably seeing Florence's posts. I'm not going to get into a public fight, but here are the facts. She went on a weekend trip with her ex, Liam. When I told her I was uncomfortable with that, she told me to grow a pair and stop being insecure. I took her advice. The relationship is over. I packed her things and she picked them all up." That's the whole story. To that text I attached one small video file. It was the 30-second clip from my security camera of Florence and Liam arriving back from their trip, laughing and smiling, looking very much like a happy couple. The narrative flipped instantly. The story of her grow a pair comment spread like wildfire. The video clip was undeniable proof that the trip was not as innocent as she claimed. Her victim act was exposed as a lie. People who had initially offered her sympathy started quietly backing away. Final update: it's been 6 months. The silence is golden. I haven't heard a single word from Florence or her family since the police visit. The story, as I've pieced it together from mutual acquaintances who have since cut ties with her, has a predictable and deeply satisfying ending. Her move back in with her parents was, by all accounts, a disaster. She was bitter, angry, and treated her parents' home like a hotel, expecting them to cater to her while she complained about how her life was ruined. The ex-boyfriend, Liam, wanted nothing to do with her after the driveway incident. He had been in it for a fun, low-stakes fling, not to be the leading man in her life's drama. He blocked her number and moved on without a second thought. The best part, however, came from the legal system. About 3 months ago, I was served with papers. She was taking me to small claims court. She was suing me for the maximum amount allowed, $10,000, for property damage and emotional distress. She claimed that by packing her things in trash bags, I had ruined thousands of dollars worth of designer clothes and electronics, and that the experience had caused her severe trauma. I almost laughed. I represented myself in court. She came with her father, looking sullen and angry. She presented her case, full of dramatic descriptions of her traumatizing ordeal and showing pictures of a few wrinkled dresses. When it was my turn, I didn't say much. I simply told the judge that I had packed all of Miss Benson's belongings and placed them on my property for her to retrieve, which she did. And then I presented my evidence. I had brought a laptop. I played the security camera footage for the judge. I showed the clip of her arriving with her ex. I showed her discovering the bags. I showed her and her father loading every single bag into their vehicle, and then I showed the final, time-stamped footage of the empty driveway. Your Honor, I said, as you can see, all property was retrieved. If any items were damaged, it likely happened during her own frantic search through the bags or during transport in her father's overstuffed minivan. I can't be held responsible for what happened to her property after it left mine. The judge looked at Florence. Miss Benson, she said, her voice stern, you have presented zero evidence of any actual damage, and the defendant has provided video proof that you took possession of all your belongings. This court is not here to mediate breakups. This is a frivolous lawsuit. Case dismissed. She didn't even get a chance to respond. The judge banged her gavel, and it was over. I walked out of that courtroom feeling 10 feet tall. My life now is peaceful. The house feels like a sanctuary, not a stage for someone else's drama. I've been working on myself, hitting the gym, focusing on my career. The grow a pair comment was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was a wake-up call. It forced me to see the truth and to act decisively to protect myself. I didn't just end a relationship, I performed a surgical extraction of a toxic presence from my life. The revenge wasn't just leaving her things in the driveway. It was the entire, methodical process. It was the cold logic, the undeniable video evidence, the refusal to engage with her emotional games. It was showing her and everyone else that I was not the insecure, pathetic man she tried to make me believe I was. She gave me a challenge, and I met it. I grew a pair big enough to take back my house, my self-respect, and my future. And that is the sweetest victory of all.